Good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. Brilliant presentation, by the way. Very intriguing. It is exciting, I think, to see us as entrepreneurs really be able to leverage just technologies, certainly including not just virtual and augmented realities, but AI. And so I do really have the distinct pleasure of being the CEO of Altoida, in that we spent the last 12 years taking smart devices and turning those into basically mobile PET scanners and the ability to do neurological testing at any place in the world at any time. And as a result, we're all about democratization of neuroscience. And we believe that with these smart devices and AI, that we can unlock neurology at scale for everyone. So a little bit about neurology. A lot of things, if you don't know the CNS space, it is a very expensive place for science, especially drug manufacturers, to operate. But it's equally as frustrating on the provider and the caregiver side. And so this really represents the current sort of clinical odyssey, if you will, of diagnosing somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's. This takes place in terms of down in the lower left here, a rater-led interview. And so asking you questions, whether those questions would go for 30 minutes or whether they go for 4 hours, this is all about the interviewing process. So very labor-intensive, doesn't scale at all, and has a lot of subjective bias in it. Then you go to sort of imaging and you go to blood biomarkers, and in this case, this is between 2.5 to 3 years for the average person to be diagnosed. But all that time is going by that you're starting to see symptoms, and clearly symptoms are required for a lot of these sort of medical procedures, but what's really going on is you're missing your therapeutic window. So we believe we're very, very passionate about the fact that if you think about every doctor out there has a stethoscope, but not every doctor is a cardiologist. And I think that makes really just sort of kind of a fantastic visual in the sense that a simple device that allows you to listen to the inside of the body, whether it's the heart, the bowels, or whatever. But the point of it is it becomes part of your training to understand these sort of vital statistics. What we did was we took a phone that everyone has and said, look, could we put it through a set of learnings? These are known as observational trials, and over a 12-year period of time, we knew everything existed in terms of PET scan, MRI, all the blood biomarkers, and we used our test results, which generate about 800 digital biomarkers, to then be trained using AI and ground truth data. And the reality of it is that it becomes frighteningly accurate. I mean, like creepy accurate, meaning that we have the ability of telling whether you have mild cognitive impairment with a 99% statistical accuracy. And we're actually now going through breakthrough to do something I'll show you in a minute that's even more exciting than that. And so what does it look like? And so really what we do is we actually just create activities of daily living. We simulate them on your phone, and we have you do these sort of tests as you're holding it in one hand, you're sort of leveling it or poking on dots that come up, or using AR to create a situation of go put this object down virtually and then come back and find it. All this takes less than 10 minutes, but we collect about 15 megabytes of data and 800 digital biomarkers that really bring back strong statistical evidence in terms of specificity and sensitivity around neurological disease. We've trained our AI to really look up on all the continuum of Alzheimer's disease. And now we are progressing into Parkinson's and other neurodegenerative diseases because we have found that all of these diseases of the brain actually have subtle, and sometimes not subtle, digital phenotypes of disease, which I think is just completely fascinating because it really does create a whole new realm of understanding the brain and unlocking what it's trying to tell you when it's not doing well. For anybody that has heard about COVID long haulers, we actually have an 86% accuracy of diagnosing COVID long haulers, and we stumbled on it because our normal population, we did a 1,000 people study in Q4 of last year, and 264 of those people got in that had confessed to be healthy and had no prior family history of neurodegenerative disease, but our AI came back and said these 264 don't look like the same. And so basically that population had then, going back on intake, either had gone to the hospital or not, but otherwise had recovered from COVID, or at least they thought they recovered. So I do think that using a smart device and tweaking every sensor on it to sit there and go through a self-guided exam really is, I think, the future of neurology. In this case, you can see the fact that, yes, we can tell you're between healthy and MCI of 99%, but miraculously, we can tell you if you have symptomatic amyloid. No, I'm not pausing because I forgot my words. I'm pausing because let's think about that. So for those of you who don't know, amyloid is considered the first thing that goes wrong in the brain that then ultimately gives you Alzheimer's. What you probably don't know is that 20% of the whole population of the planet, 50 and older, are starting to accumulate amyloid. And so when you think about Alzheimer's, it's twice as big in terms of a market than diabetes. And so how do you sit there and take 5,400 PET scanners on planet Earth and scan the population for amyloid if you now have therapies that are pointing for early detection and early intervention before amyloid starts to sort of inevitably eat holes in your brain? And so quickly what we're doing is we're really expanding to where we are going in terms of regulatory. Right now we're 510(k) exempt around the world as a computerized cognitive assessment aid. What we're now going for with regulatory approval is that we want to be an adjunctive diagnostic. And this adjunctive diagnostic would be the first time that you could use a smart device to diagnose mild cognitive impairment, which is part of the disease profile of 250 diseases in ICD-10. We then will also do an adjunctive diagnostic to basically detect MCI due to amyloid. This is sort of a subsection of our pro forma, if you will. We have already generated $14 million in revenue from pharma. We've generated more than that in the last 10 months of sale. We started commercializing our technology in October of last year, and so we've not quite hit 12 months yet. We'll do about $4 to $5 million of revenue this year, and it will continue to climb. But if you just tease out what's going on in sort of the CNS trials perspective, there's a big market there. One of the things that many of you may not know is that 60% of the cost to build a drug for the brain goes to diagnostic testing and cognitive assessment. Cognitive assessments, plural. And so in this case, we believe that we'll get adjunctive diagnostic status with the FDA at the end of 2024, and we're working in parallel to generate a new code that would diagnose MCI as well as MCI due to AD. We have a great team of people. Antonella, our chief medical officer, we were able to recruit her from Biogen. She was a lab manager for those who invented Aduhelm. And so we have just a good group of people that are really obviously excited about, neurology and neurological diagnosis being more than Gestalt and being more than a 3-year diagnostic odyssey. And then I would just finish up by saying that I believe that all things in digital have the opportunity to be democratized. And with this, you have the opportunity of using a platform sort of way to reach an entire audience. And so not only do we help pharma build better and faster drugs for treating neurological conditions, but we also are a platform that extends into educating the consumer to self-test, as well as the provider to use is an opportunity to sort of screen. That if there's a half a dozen MCIs that are due to dementia and Alzheimer's related conditions of that family, then how do they treat and understand the other 240 something, right? And so I think a platform is really a great opportunity to not only monetize the entire ecosystem of healthcare, but really now democratize so that people can self-activate. And I think self-activation is really important. We used to talk about pre-diabetes, or we used to talk about diabetes as if that was sort of it. You were either, it was binary, you had it or you didn't have it. Now we talk about pre-diabetic. I think we're now getting into a place where we have sensitive enough equipment where we can start to think about pre-neurodegenerative diseases. We can start thinking about the preclinical phases where I think drugs will have the best opportunity, lifestyle intervention, and other sorts of management that'll help us remain at the top of our game when it comes to cognitive performance. Thank you very much for your time.